So we had £2.5 left in the budget to go to Africa and shoot the scene with the girl and the jeep and the soldiers and the ruins. So we couldn't quite get to Africa, so we went to Spain, and we had 5 days to shoot this scene, which is only 2 seconds. But we had 5 days, and we arrived in Sevilla, the south of Spain. We couldn't. We were liaising with a Barcelona production company that Amnesty had put us in touch with, but they didn't know too much about what was going on in the south of Spain, except that you could possibly find a desert scene there. So we were wandering around the south of Spain looking for a place that looked like Africa. And that was we arrived on a Thursday, and by Saturday we hadn't found anything, except that we were in a town in the middle of the desert called Las Tabernas, which we had been directed to, and there was this guy we were to meet on the Saturday night who was going to help us out, and his name was, I remember it vividly, his name was Angel, the angel. So this guy was the fixer, and Tabernas was the centre of Spain's mini Hollywood. They used to make 60 films a year there. All the cowboy films, the spaghetti westerns were shot there, and this was their heyday. But now it's all closed down, and they miss the old days. But they still have this sort of movie sensibility. So when we rocked up in town, Angel was dying to help us out. Everybody in town wanted to help us out, and from 6 o'clock on Saturday to 6 o'clock on Sunday, he arranged guns, jeeps, uniforms, a cast of Moroccans to play the soldiers. Actually, the old guy was the Romanian guy.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
We've had a lot of Romanians in the area.
We ended up dancing Romanian.
We're dancing Romanian dancing. Anyway, ruined the story now. Now they know there was a happy ending. Oh, anyway, Angel arranged all of these things in 24 hours, but we had an hour to shoot, was it?
I wanted to get the sun just right, just before it went down. So we wanted to shoot it in just that hour when the sun was very low.
He was being difficult. But oh yes, we had our only falling out when just before we were shooting, and miraculously, as far as I was concerned, I didn't know how this was going to come together, and miraculously it had come together. We had Moroccans, we had jeeps and guns and all the things that we needed out of nowhere suddenly miraculously appeared. But Declan said, I wanted Africans. And I said, well, Morocco was in Africa. You've not seen the map, it's got on the top Morocco. And then he wanted sub-Saharan Africans. So my point was that we're unlikely to find them at this point. So you just got to make do with Moroccans.
So we have Moroccans.
So we went with Moroccans. And then we were shooting, and the shadow, you could literally see the shadow moving across the sand. You could see a very long shadow there. And it just at the very last minute, literally, we got the last shot in before the shadow stopped.
You got it, yeah. And just very quickly, just on that, the other important thing that you need a good script, but you also, reputation helps. Because there are people who love the script, but then there are people who want to work with you because you have a reputation, you have a good reputation, so they want to work with you. And when you're making a low-budget film, be it a long film or a short film, if you have people who want to work with you because of your reputation, that's good. So things like Amnesty, that has helped, working with certain people. So you send out press releases. You know, you send out a press release saying we've just done a film for Amnesty, or we've just won an award, or we've just whatever. So I don't know if Romanians are like Irish, but we're very slow to talk about ourselves. You know, like, oh, but you can't be, because when you get to America, it's the opposite.
Just one more thing on that video, which seems to be impossible that you have to do all these things. That somehow it does come together, and there's so much goodwill for people making films. And you've got a lot you can throw in yourself, like in the previous scene of the angry guy throwing the vase. Incidentally, no children were scared in the making of that scene, because if you look at it closely, it was he has a vase in his hand, but when it's flying through the air, it's actually a plastic.
It was a bag in the same colour. Yeah.
But I neglected. That was my house. Sorry. So the point was that we used my house to make that, and I neglected to tell the neighbours what was happening. And we shot several takes over and over again of this guy Rory, who's was an Irish name, and he's very well named. He was really bringing the house down with his
So there's also
roaring.
a big scene of domestic violence.
Played out
Being repeated seven times or 8 times.
And something got wrong with the camera. We had to do it again.
Yeah.
So it was going on for the whole day, this raging domestic violence, and through quite, thin walls. And then I remembered, maybe I should have mentioned to the neighbours what we were doing. So I went and I knocked on the door after we'd been doing this for the whole day, and I said, "You didn't happen to hear anything?" I said, "Yes, we've been hearing all day," and they didn't react.
Yeah, so if you're in a domestic violence situation,
don't depend on your neighbours.
We'll just take you very quickly through this. I'm involved in a couple of European projects, and we have films being sent in by first-time student filmmakers. And there are one thing like the music. There's some guy who's Justin Bieber in the film, and the film is great, but nobody can see it because it's got a Justin Bieber. If people want to see Justin Bieber, but
so if you're in a bar or whatever and you meet Justin Bieber, just don't talk to him because he's already signed up. Talk to the band or the musician that has no copyright issues whatsoever.
So just again, hopefully, if you get hold of this PowerPoint, it'll remind you, like, have a checklist. First of all, your scheduling, and so this is in your technical preparation. This is when you're going out to shoot your low budget film. Your technical preparation, and perhaps one thing is talent release forms. Okay, so people are in there. Make sure you get all your releases done, because when you're shooting low budget, you don't have all of the people necessarily to do all of the jobs, so things can get overlooked. So make sure you've got your
runners or assistants.
Yes, and you get your people in. You get your talent release. Your budget is incredibly important to actually sit down. Even if you don't have money, every kind of person that donates a camera to be used, that's money. That's so you put all of that down. Locations.
Yeah. Just to put the two things together: permissions for talent, permissions for locations. We had an issue where we were filming in an internet cafe, and we had arranged with the owner, and we agreed. But in the middle of the shoot, we had arranged for weeks in advance to go there. We had all our equipment hired, we had the crew there, and then in the middle of this, he decides that he wants to be paid money. So he was actually quite clever, because we had to pay him, because we were waiting for him to sign it. We were doing what a lot of production companies do, even in national television in Ireland. They go out and they interview somebody, and then afterwards they get them to sign the form. So I think it's better to get them to sign the form before. Like, you don't go in a film, you don't get an actor to sign his contract after the film is made. You didn't have a contract. So anyway, I think you can't afford to have mistakes when you're on a low budget. You've got no fallback. So we had to pay this guy. It was only 150 quid, but we got done without having to do it. But people can hold you to ransom if you don't have them signed on the in advance. Even just the fact that it is signed, whatever the legal standing of it, it makes them not push you on the issue. They think that they're being totally wrapped up legally, and they have to.
Okay. And then just the other thing is your locations. Make sure you do it in a sensible way. You're not running all over the place. Move. You can shoot several different, point the camera different ways, and you're getting different scenes. Try and be clever about where you're shooting. With the creative preparation, I think one of the most essential things in low budget filmmaking is rehearsal. And there's two reasons that's really important. First of all, if your actors are going to show up, if your actors are being paid nothing, or if they're being paid very little, okay, the problem is they may not show up on the day. Did you have any commitment problems if you're not paying?
Actually, we're in the middle of shooting the Roma party, all dances and music and whatnot. And right before we were about to start the shooting, the Roma band came and said, "We want to sign right now." And that was at the end of 3 long discussions with them, and they all agreed that okay, we're going to come. And then they said, "Okay, but we want to sign right now." And I said, "Okay, no, you can go. I'll give you money for the guests. You can go right now." And they said, "Okay, we're going to do it."
One of the greatest problems is if you're not paying people or paying them little, they have the power. Okay, so if you rehearse with the actors, if they're going to show up for rehearsals and they're going to keep showing up for rehearsals, they'll show up for the shoot. But if you start having problems with rehearsals, well then just get rid of them, you know what I mean, and move on to, you know, because once you're on set, you can only borrow the location once. You can't say, oh, it didn't work, can I come back next week? You can only assemble all of those people with all of the equipment and all of the goodwill once. It's very hard to get it back again. So you have to make sure. So you need commitment from all of your people, and it's the same with your technical crews. You know, if they don't show up for the technical meetings, they're not going to show up for the shoot. If they don't show up for the rehearsals.
I'd like to complete what you said with some advice that I got from a theatre director. You told me your only currency is enthusiasm, and whoever doesn't share it, they should.
That's absolutely right, and it gets back to what I was saying before. You know, if you give them the script and they're willing to work because they love the script, they'll have this enthusiasm. You know, and you know, so that's really important. And then so get all of your props, because you know if you're sitting there getting your props ready and you're on your own and it's a week before the shoot, that doesn't cost you anything. But if you are there with 20 people of the crew and cast standing around and you're trying to make the props and they're all standing there, that's a lot, you know. So make sure your preparation, your technical preparation and everything is right. Get your storyboard. Now that's the way I do storyboards. I go onto my laptop and I draw in this kind of little draw program that I have, and I draw out exactly what way I'm going to. This was a little movie I shot in Hollywood actually, and Brad Pitt was in this movie, okay? And the reason Brad Pitt was in this movie was because I was shooting down Hollywood Boulevard, and a limousine pulled up, and Brad Pitt got out, and then his bodyguard went like that, and Brad says, no, they're shooting, stand. So he stood back with the bodyguard, and we shot our movie, and in my movie there's Brad Pitt standing by his limo waiting for us to go past. So I did a movie with Brad Pitt. But that was this movie. But you get your storyboard because you sit there and you sit with your director of photography and you work out exactly what shots you're going to use to tell the story. Not every shot, but the key frames. You work it all out with your guy. Because that means that when you go to shoot the movie, you're not standing there moving the camera. You know exactly what you're going to do. Because once you're on set, you know, you're trying to fit as much in as little time as possible, because you've all of those people who are there for their enthusiasm and their goodwill. And the more you try to drag that out, the less enthusiastic they become. Okay, like you said, your currency is enthusiasm. So your storyboard, get your props ready. This was the front room in the apartment that I was living in, you know. And if you turn the camera around, you'll see all my domestic furniture and everything piled up everywhere, and we made it into an office, you know. So you know, work out your locations. Try and leave as little to think about on the day. On the day, you should only be thinking about the artistic expression of your actors. As a director, the artistic expression of your actors. All of the rehearsal has been done. Where they move, how they move, the actual shots. That's all been done before you ever go to roll camera on the day. Now, it's open to change. You might come up with a different idea, but generally that's what you try to do. Have you anything on that? So you come to the shoot, right? So you're actually shooting your movie now, okay? Back to what we said before. You need backup, okay? Because on the day, if somebody doesn't show up, the whole thing can fall apart. So wherever possible, have somebody else who can use the camera, have somebody else who can do the sound, have somebody else who can do the different parts. Try and get as much backup, as much plan B as you can. Food, okay? If you're not paying, you'll know about this. You have to feed people because you're going to keep them there for 12 hours, okay? You know, you schedule for 8, it'll be 12, okay? So you have to feed people. So if you spend money on anything, make sure it's on, you know, having some sandwiches and all that kind of thing. We did that 8-part TV series, and it was called The House, and it was all in a house and stuff. And we had a kitchen, so we just had a fridge full of food. Bill organised all of this. So when people came in from being out in the rain, because it actually rains a lot in Ireland.
Rains a lot here too.
No, but when people come in from that, it's nice to have just pizzas coming out of the oven or whatever, you know. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be there. And then the other thing as well that's essential, especially if people are working for little or nothing and for enthusiasm, You have to share the love. If you're walking past somebody, just take the time to tell them they're doing a good job. You know, like when you're sitting there, you've been an extra and you're sitting there for ages, and the director just pats you on the shoulder and says, "You were great in that last scene," or you know, just something like that. You've no idea how much enthusiasm that can inject in people. I've no idea what the spinny wheelie thing is.
Transport, you know, the low budget locations within a city are.
Get lots of spinny wheels.
If you know, it's so much cheaper to do a location that's in a city where everybody lives. They can make their own way to the set. If you go outside the city, it gets really complicated. You know, you go into accommodation and transport. Yeah. And if you're again low budget, pay people in food and make sure they're not out of pocket at the very least with transport.
In Whatever Turns You On, we had a makeup artist, and we were shooting 1 hour outside of Dublin this way. So she got on the highway and went 1 hour out of Dublin the opposite way. And then so it took her 2 hours to get back, you know. So these kind of things, you know, like you have to be very clear. And then the other thing as well is get a good AD who will start kind of, you know, beating you up and saying, look, you're running over time, you're running over time. Because no matter how enthusiastic people are, after 12 hours, they start getting really, really tired. And the other thing then is, it's so easy when everybody is sitting around. It's very warm, like here, so everybody's sitting around and you're warm and you're tired and you've been listening to me talk for an hour and you talk as well, you know. It's very easy to kind of start feeling but you have to watch your film for the rest of your life, you know. So at the end of the day's shooting, no matter how tired you feel, you need somehow, as a director, as a filmmaker, you need to really pull that enthusiasm and keep that enthusiasm going to the end. Because although everyone will feel really horrible about it for that hour or for that hour and a half, as soon as they get home they'll feel great, and for the rest of their lives they'll feel great. But if you don't, if you say, look, that'll do, let's just call it a day, we have something, it'll do, for the rest of your life you'll be staring at that going, shit, I should have done the extra thing.
Or it's more than an hour or two in the middle of a long production, in an 8-week production, in the middle, the same thing will happen. People will be drained, and you start off thinking this is going to be the greatest work of art ever and you're going to pour your body and soul into it, and you do, but then in the middle of it you're completely and utterly drained and you just want to get the bloody thing finished. And so that's the point at which you make the film great, if you can just get a bit of extra energy.
Okay, so in order to make this talk great, I will let you know we are coming to the end, so keep your enthusiasm for does anybody want the windows open?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want that one open, or are you okay? You're okay. So just very quickly, post-production. Once you have your film in the cam, you don't need a big editing suite to do your film, okay? And what I've used, which is fantastic, is I have my laptop, and beside my laptop I have a tablet. And there is a thing called Air Display, and Air Display allows you over a Wi-Fi, and it doesn't have to be even the Wi-Fi of the hotel. It can be a Wi-Fi that you set up between your two Wi-Fi enabled devices. So you have your laptop, and then beside it you have your I have an iPad, but you know, you have a PC, tablet or whatever, or even my phone, my Samsung phone, I can use that, and connected it becomes a second screen. So I can use that with a really good set of headphones. I can sit in a cafe and edit the film.
Or at home you could buy a cheap monitor, like
well, you can do a lot with just that. Again, the music, that's where you bring in all of this database of music that you've had. And then the final thing is, when you've got, before you lock your picture down, before you say that's it, I'm walking away, it's done. Before you do that, you know, most people will show it to the crew and they'll show it to their family and they'll show it to this. Try to find some people who hate you, right? Because if you show it to people who hate you and they go, yeah, it's good, then it's good, you know? Like, it's not enough to show it to all the people who love you, because they'll all say how great it is. And it's really strange, right? You can watch your film 100 times before it gets its release. But when you sit in the premiere and you sit down and watch your film, and there's a whole big audience there watching the film with you, you start to see things that you never saw the 100 times you watched it. You start saying, God, that moment is dragging too long. Oh, I should have cut this way, I should have cut that way. It's not until you see your film with an audience that you really see your film. And that's the first time. And then the second time, you don't watch your film, you watch the audience. you know. And you know, so it's important if you can do that before you lock your picture down. Do that still in the process, because then you still have time to change it based on that. I mean, in Hollywood, you know, they'll show it to test audiences and completely change the picture around after a questionnaire. But just try and show it to people who dislike you.
Or if it's people that like you.
Ex-girlfriends.
And if they just say, you know, when somebody says to you, oh yeah, it was great, you know, but they don't say anything specific, you know, you have to look for some specific comment so you know that they really did think it was great. If you just say in general, yeah, it was great, you know, that doesn't really mean anything. They're not commenting on anything specifically. So just watch out for the specifics are the truth.
Okay, I've two